Good morning, I'm Pauline Verzosa. It is Thursday, the 28th of May, and we're bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. And now first on the agenda, the International Criminal Court has set the start of former President Rodrigo Duterte's trial on November 30. Duterte was a no-show at the first status conference where his lawyers, the prosecution, and victims' counsel argued over several matters. More details in this report.
Former President Rodrigo Duterte was still a no-show at the first status conference of trial Chamber 3 of the International Criminal Court. This is for the crimes against humanity case filed against the former president stemming from his bloody drug war. Attorney Peter Haynes, who replaced attorney Nicholas Kaufman, appeared on Duterte's behalf. According to the prosecution, they need until September 30 to complete the disclosure of evidence. After that, they said they would be ready to begin the trial proper on November 30. But Duterte's lawyer said the standard timeline is to begin the trial 3 months after the disclosure of evidence. That means, he said, the trial should start on December 30.
We will be ready for whenever you want it to start, but our anxiety is that that should not be a date which leaves us with perhaps 1 or 2 months after the end of prosecution disclosure.
The counsel for victims, meanwhile, agreed that the trial may begin on September 30 or November 30. But they said it would already be too long if the trial is pushed back to 2027. The trial chamber gave the prosecution until August 24 to submit its witness list and reports. The prosecution plans to present 70 witnesses, including 31 insiders. Their evidence list also includes around 197 speeches. But for Judge Joanna Corner of Trial Chamber 3, that numbers appears to be too many, especially if the testimonies would only be repetitive.
197 speeches seems to me, on the face of it, it's probably not the right word, but it seems to me too much. And I think you need to consider fairly carefully whether you need all 197.
That will be narrowed. That we will make careful selections. We don't intend to introduce, I'm sure, all 197 of those.
The prosecution will also use video-linked testimony for witnesses who cannot go to the ICC. The language to be used during the trial was also discussed. The prosecution proposed that the proceedings be broadcast in Tagalog to make it more understandable.
It would be much, much better for the population and the victims and people interested in this case if it could be broadcast in Tagalog. Some of the poorer community, where many of the victims are from, do not have a good command.
But will Duterte need an interpreter?
He won't need interpretation.
For now, Judge Corner has also asked accredited experts to review again the former president's fitness to stand trial. This comes after a new and separate request from the defense on May 25 to have Duterte undergo another medical assessment.
The chamber is obliged to make a separate finding. I rather think we'll wait and see what the reports say before we make such a decision.
In the middle of the status conference, Trial Chamber 3 agreed to set November 30 as the start of the trial proper.
And in other news, the PNP Firearms and Explosives Office has officially revoked the firearm license and registrations of Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa. Mobile journalist Merimon Reyes has this report.
The Philippine National Police has revoked Senator Ronald de la Rosa's right to bear firearms. This means Bato can now be charged with illegal possession of firearms if caught with guns. In the order dated Tuesday, May 26, and signed by Firearms and Explosives Office Chief Brigadier General Jose Manalad, de la Rosa's firearms license and registrations were revoked pursuant to the Comprehensive Firearms and Ammunition Regulation Act. The order was issued as de la Rosa continues to evade authorities following an ICC arrest warrant linked to his role in the Duterte drug war. Records from the PNP Firearms Office noted that De La Rosa was a holder of a Type 5 LTOPF, the highest classification for private gun ownership. This means he can own and possess more than 15 firearms. His license was originally valid until March 10, 2034. The agency disclosed that 117 assorted firearms were registered under the name of Senator Bato, and all of these should now be surrendered. Manala directed the Regional Civil Security Unit or RCSU in the Davao region to to serve the formal notice of the revocation at De La Rosa's registered address in Davao City. The directive explicitly tasks RCSU 11 to facilitate the immediate confiscation of the registered firearms under De La Rosa's name. However, De La Rosa's legal counsel, Israelito Torion, argued that the police agency is misinterpreting the very law it is trying to enforce. The lawyer said the PNP confused the qualifications to acquire a license with those to strip someone of it. Torion pointed out that the FEO should read the law further. He also emphasized that De La Rosa has not been convicted by any domestic court, nor has a local judge ordered his disarming, which are criminal grounds in revoking a person's gun license. While this developed, operatives of the Criminal Investigation and Detection Group and the National Bureau of Investigation raided a house in a subdivision in Barangay Balibago, Angeles City, Pampanga early Wednesday morning. The house, allegedly owned by the uncle of Senator Robin Padilla, was believed to be a hideout of Senator De La Rosa. Authorities allegedly based their suspicion on reports that Bato may have transferred to a pickup owned by Padilla's uncle after he left the Senate on May 14. Investigators, however, found neither De La Rosa nor the pickup vehicle at their residence. And speaking of Senator Padilla, he is himself facing a criminal complaint from the PNP. The CIDG says it will be referring to the Department of Justice an obstruction of justice complaint against the senator and several others for allegedly helping De La Rosa escape. PNP CIDG Chief Police Major General Robert Morico said the agency's investigation showed that De La Rosa was not merely given a ride in Padilla's vehicle on May 14. That's only several hours after the shooting incident at the Senate on May 13. Instead, the CIDG described the incident as a highly coordinated and pre-planned escape maneuver so Senator Bato can avoid detection and escape the Senate premises. The CIDG also revealed that another vehicle allegedly acted as a security escort and backup car for the white SUV owned by Padilla, which De La Rosa boarded during the operation. Robin had earlier admitted that Bato accompanied him when leaving the Senate and that he dropped the latter off in Makati City. Padilla also maintained that he does not know De La Rosa's whereabouts and did not help his fellow Duterte supporter evade authorities since there was no warrant for De La Rosa at the time. Kapatid Mobile journalist Mary Monreyes, we are One News.
The Environment Department has suspended tree cutting along Quirino Avenue and Rojas Boulevard in Manila. During the Kapihan sa Manila Bay Forum, DENR Acting Secretary Mitch Cuna said the temporary halt was voluntary. It is aimed at allowing further study on whether some trees can be earthballed or relocated instead of being cut. The site is part of the area where trees were said to be affected by the construction of the Southern Access Link Expressway or SALEX.
It pains us to also be the ones tasked. So, masakit at mabigat na tungkulin ng DNR na mag-issue ng tree cutting permits. Pero, yun po ang nasa ilalim ng batas. Kung may gusto magputol ng puno. But this is the reality of the world we live in. Kaya nga, na-coin po yung term na sustainable development. Dahil kinikilala po natin na for our economy to grow and improve, kailangan ng development.
Now don't go away, we will be back with more stories right after this break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning and welcome back. I'm Pauline Verzosa. And here on Morning Matters, we talk about the most pressing issues and we give you the context behind the headlines. Former President Rodrigo Duterte's trial before the International Criminal Court is set to begin on November 30. During the first status conference, the prosecution said it needs until September 30 to complete its evidence disclosure. The trial chamber also ordered the prosecution to submit its witness lists and reports by August 24. Prosecutors plan to present 70 witnesses, including 31 insiders, but the court flagged a large number of speeches in the evidence list. The court also discussed the use of video link testimony, the possible Tagalog broadcast of the trial, and a fresh review of Duterte's fitness to stand trial. And now to help us understand what comes next in former President Duterte's case before the ICC, we are joined again by Attorney Gilbert Andres, the common legal representative of the victims in the prosecutor versus Duterte case. Good morning, Attorney Andres, and thank you for being back here on the program.
Good morning, Pauline, and thank you for having me.
All right, well, Attorney, the ICC has now set November 30 as the start of the former president's trial. How significant is this, especially for the victims?
Well, it's significant because, in fact, it means that there's really a particular and specific trial date. And I also like to emphasize what the presiding judge stated yesterday, in that this proceeding shall look for efficiency, effectiveness, and fair trial.
Well, yesterday, Attorney, we saw that the defense still made some objections, and they argue that it was premature to set a trial date because Mr. Duterte's fitness to stand trial still needs to be reassessed. Now, for the victims, are there any concerns that the health-related issues of the former president might slow down the proceedings?
Well, there are no concerns because, in fact, speaking as a lawyer, this is within the duty of the Rome Statute. And in fact, it's in Article 64. So we understand that.
All right. Well, yesterday, Attorney, Judge Joanna Corner also stressed that evidence must be presented in the shortest and clearest way possible. How significant is that for the victims, Attorney, that the chamber here appears to want to have a tightly managed and streamlined trial?
Actually, the victims look forward to that and they welcome that because, in fact, there's a right of the victims to expeditious proceedings. And also, even the accused has the right to trial without undue delay. So this actually helps all of the parties and the victim participants.
So from today until November 30, Attorney, what can we expect? I know the prosecution has until September 30 to complete its evidence disclosure. Tell us what that means in practical terms.
Well, actually, just a correction. It's actually August 31, wherein the prosecution has to submit their final list, their trial brief, as well as any expert reports. So they have until August 31. So that's 3 months before the November 30, 2026 trial date. So this is significant because it means that everyone can be well prepared. In fact, for us, the common legal representative for the victims, we also have our own deadline, which is September 28, to file the trial brief. And the defense also has the October 30 deadline to file their own trial brief.
And is that enough time for you, Attorney?
Well, that's enough time, and we will do our best to be effective and efficient as mandated also by the trial chamber.
Now, Attorney, prosecutors say they expect to call between 60 to 70 witnesses during the trial. But for a crimes against humanity case before the ICC, I wanted to ask you, is that considered a large number? And what does that tell us about the strength of the prosecution's case here, if we're talking about as many as 70 witnesses?
Well, I think the modicum, the standard that we should set is not whether it's many or few. The standard really is whether it's enough to prove beyond reasonable doubt. And I think that's what the Office of the Prosecutor decided, that there's a need for 60 to 70 witnesses. So if that's what the prosecutor decided, then I think that's within the prosecutorial discretion.
And the prosecution here classified its witnesses into 3 different kinds, Attorney. Meron yung insider witnesses, there are also crime-based witnesses, and contextual witnesses. Can you explain to us, Attorney, the importance of each type of witness in the ICC?
Well, of course, for the insider witnesses, they know what were the modus operandi with respect to the war on drugs. That's why they're called insider witnesses. For the case specific, they can actually testify as to the specific cases. And when we say cases, that includes the incidents. And third, the contextual element. Remember, these are crimes against humanity of murder. So there's a need to show that it's a widespread and systematic attack against the civilian population. So all of these witnesses will show the 4 elements of crimes against humanity of murder.
And attorney, what kind of testimonies do you believe will be the most crucial in establishing the accountability of the former president in his war on drugs?
Well, I think every witness is important because every witness contributes to identifying and proving the elements of crimes against humanity for murder. But let's see, because the trial will still have to commence on November 30.
Now, as you mentioned, attorney, the chamber set a deadline of August 31 to add any new incidents to the case. Do you still expect more witnesses to come forward and to be included before this August 31 cutoff?
Well, I think any additional incidents, as stated by the prosecutor yesterday, will be related to any witnesses that's already being interviewed. So I don't think that there's a need for additional witness, but of course, any additional witnesses will be welcome, I think, by the prosecutor.
And yesterday, attorney, the court also discussed the use of video link testimonies and the possibility of having a Tagalog or Filipino broadcast. How significant is that for this trial?
Well, in the spirit of efficiency, effectiveness, and fair trial, it's significant because for any witness who may not be able to attend in person, then there's that audio-visual link that's provided and is an option. But remember, the ICC always puts a premium on security. In fact, when I applied for remote attendance, it was rejected because a secure link cannot be provided. That's how the ICC looks at the premium on security of witnesses and victims. Secondly, it's also important that Filipino will be one of the translations to be used during the trial because maintindihan po ng ating mga kababayan yung pong mismong paglilitis po sa sariling wika po nating Filipino.
But given the sensitivities of this case, attorney, would you say there are still concerns among the witnesses, the victims, the families about intimidation or maybe fear of retaliation from the Duterte camp? And are there any safeguards that the ICC can provide them? Any protection?
Well, the ICC always have that duty. Sa pong obligasyon po ito ng ICC na magbigay po ng proteksyon sa mga testigo at sa mga victims po Kaya yan po meron na pong mga sistema yung ICC as in any court. For example, here in the Philippines, we have a witness protection program that's also in place in the ICC. So there's already a system in place to protect the witnesses.
And as a common legal representative for the victims, Attorney Andres, around how many victims are expected, or families of the victims are expected to participate in this trial?
Well, okay. Victim participation, it means that they're already participating, they're already admitted. So as of now, there are 539. But we hope that this will increase because in fact, there will be an opening of the proceedings. Bubuksan po ang proseso po ng pag-apply po ng mga victims para maging participants. And I just want to clarify na it doesn't mean na sila po ay mga testigo. Iba po yung testigo, iba po yung victim participants. Kaya antabayanan po natin kung kailan pong bubuksan yan.
So, attorney, maybe you can help us understand ano po yung magiging nature ng kanilang participation in this trial if we're talking about yung mga victims po vis-a-vis yung mga witnesses.
Okay, iba pong witness, iba pong victim participants. Ang victim participants, ibig sabihin, talagang technically, part po sila ng proseso, kaya sila po ay nirepresenta po namin bilang common legal representative of the victims. Pero hindi po ibig sabihin na testigo po sila. So, ibig sabihin, pinapaabot po natin, kailangan po namin, we need to update them, we need to also listen to them so that we can show to the trial chamber any views and concerns that they want us to state before the trial chamber.
So kumbaga, attorney, you will be representing them, you will be airing their thoughts, their sentiments, kasi importante rin po na makuha yung kanilang side dito sa trial na ito.
Yes, at gusto ko lang dang linawin na for the victims, they don't have the duty to prove guilt beyond reasonable doubt. What is the duty of their lawyers? Our duty is to show yung victimization at yung suffered harm po ng mga biktima dahil po sa war on drugs.
So 539 drug war victims so far have been cleared to join. Pero sabi nyo nga po, attorney, bukas pa rin po yan. But the defense earlier also warned that this case could become quote-unquote unmanageable if the prosecutors daw po keep broadening the allegations and if thousands and thousands of victims will be allowed to participate. Ano po yung masasabi nyo doon, attorney?
I think klaro na po what the trial chamber stated. Number one is that there will be an application process and that it will be until the end of the prosecution's presentation of its evidence. Number two, there will be the ABC approach. And number three, kung sino man po yung victims na recognized as participants ng pre-trial, tutuloy pa rin po sa trial chamber. So, hindi po ito magresulta sa inefficiency because in fact, again, the trial chamber emphasized efficiency, effectiveness, and fair trial.
Posible po ba, attorney, na umabot sa 1,000 victim participants dito po sa kasong ito?
Well, posible po yan. Kasi kung tingnan po natin, base naman po sa confirmed charges, at least thousands naman po ang namatay doon sa count 3 po at least hundreds po doon sa count 1 po. So, posible pong thousands pong umabot. Kasi in fact, it's also public record na yung admitted killings under police operations for the relevant period ay at least 6,000 po. Admitted na po yan ng PNP, even na public records po dito sa Pilipinas.
Okay, because yesterday, attorney, we also saw the chamber, the judges urging the prosecutors to carefully review naman yung 197 speeches identified as evidence kasi baka naman po masyadong marami, it could be too overwhelming. And the prosecutors did say naman po na they would narrow down the list of speeches and not play all of them during the trial. So, do you agree na kailangan nga po mas streamline itong yung mga speeches as evidence, but at the same time, what is the sheer volume of all these public statements say about the magnitude, the seriousness of the Duterte drug war if we're talking about 197?
Well, agree naman po kami. We agree that there's a need to be efficient. So, and in fact, the prosecutor already stated that they will carefully choose kung alin po doon yung speeches out of the 197. Kasi kung for context, yung 60 to 70 witnesses po ng prosecutor, sabi po ng prosecutor, approximately 200 hours pong kailangan nila. Kung 197 speeches, baka maubos po yung 200 hours. Kaya we understand po the directive of the trial chamber. And in fact, the prosecutor will follow through.
And based on what we've seen, attorney, noong confirmation of charges hearing last February, what do you think the prosecutors still need to prove in order to secure the conviction of former President Rodrigo Duterte? He is facing 3 counts of crimes against humanity here. Pero ano pa po sa tingin niyo yung magiging posibleng smoking gun or yung kailangan talagang mapatunayan to prove that he is guilty of committing these crimes?
Well, iba po ngayon sa trial kasi ang kailangan pong evidence is proof beyond reasonable doubt as in any criminal trial po. Kaya mas mataas po yung antas ng ebidensya at sa tingin ko po at alam po yan ng prosecution. Kaya we trust that the prosecution will do its duty under the Rome Statute to show proof beyond reasonable doubt against Mr. Duterte.
Well, last February, we already saw a preview, a glimpse of what could be the argument of the defense here. Although iba pa po yung abogado ni former President Duterte noon, but most of their arguments were anchored on the statements of former President Duterte as just hyperbole, it's just bluster. Do you anticipate na ganun pa rin po yung magiging argument nila pagdating ng trial proper? And what do the families of the victims have to say sa ganoong argumento po ng defense?
Well, frankly, it's difficult to speculate right now what will be the defense of the accused because in fact they have until October 30 to file their defense trial brief. So let's wait and see. But as for the victims, what's important ay mapapakita po namin yung pong lalim at yung ugat at yung sugat po ng biktimasasyon at yung dagok po na nadulot po ng war on drugs.
But at the same time, attorney, the ICC is actually also facing external pressures, political pressures. No, they have sanctions from the United States. Do you think magkaka-epekto po ito sa proceedings ng ICC?
Wala pong epekto to at dapat po wala po siyang epekto. Kasi ang ICC po, isa po siyang judicial body. Therefore, it will do its judicial duty to hear, to be fair, and to determine the truth.
And in terms of international context, attorney, former President Rodrigo Duterte is actually poised to become the first Asian former head of state to stand trial before the ICC. How significant historically is this moment for international law?
Well, it means that no one's above the law. Even former heads of state and heads of government are still accountable, especially under international justice, because at the end, the community of states, they don't want impunity for perpetrators of international crimes.
And locally, attorney, ano naman po yung take nyo sa patuloy na paghahanap kay Senator Bato de la Rosa, who is also facing a standing arrest warrant from the ICC?
Well, ibig sabihin po nito, wala pong nakakataas sa ating batas dahil kahit po ang isang senador ay nasa ilalim din po ng batas. Kaya sana po ay mahuli ng po talaga ng ating law enforcement agencies si Senator Bato at sana mapag-isipan na rin ni Senator Bato na kusa pong mag-surrender po sa ating law enforcement agencies.
And attorney, can you maybe give us an idea if other arrest warrants could be forthcoming para doon sa ibang co-perpetrators named sa Duterte drug war?
Well, mahirap po talagang sabihin definitely kasi ang proseso pong yan ay nakaselyo, sekreto po yan. Ngunit logical lang po na magkakaroon po hopefully ng application and the witness, the victims po, they really hope that there will be ICC arrest warrants against the other named co-perpetrators.
Okay, all right. And finally, attorney, what would justice look like for the victims that you represent? Is it purely about the conviction of President Duterte, or is it also about the accountability, yung acknowledgement of the crimes, what happened here during those years, and maybe even reparation? Is that also in the minds of the families of victims?
Well, tatlong bagay. Una, katotohanan, truth. Ikalawa po ay hustisya, justice. Ikatatlo po ay reparasyon. Ito po yung hinihingi ng mga biktima at ito din po ang kanilang mga karapatan under international law.
All right. Well, thank you very much for sharing your insights with us. As always, that was Attorney Gilbert Andres, Common Legal Representative of the victims in the ICC. Thank you, Attorney. And now in other news, Makabayan lawmakers expressed support for the Senate minority's walkout and opposed proposals to allow online participation in the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. Mobile journalist Amy Atienza tells us more in this report.
ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tino and Kabataan Party List Representative Rene Co showed their support on the Senate minority members' walkout, which happened during the upper chamber session last Tuesday, May 26. This occurred as the Senate majority pushed for an online participation among members who are physically absent, particularly on Senator Bato de la Rosa's part. But for now, House Prosecution spokesperson Co, this should not be the case, especially as Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial is a very serious matter.
Kung magkakaroon man ng pagbabago sa modes of engagement, kailangan may amendments doon sa rules on impeachment. Pero sa atin na mga hawakan natin, you need to be physically present to appreciate the evidence. You need to be physically present to appreciate hindi lang yung direct answer to questions, pero even yung nonverbal language, yung kanyang gestures na sa puno dulo, bubuo ng mas complete picture sa senator judges.
Further, Co wants all senator judges to be participative and proceed with the process forthwith. No delay should happen in the light of the Vice's impeachment case.
Mga student councils, inaasahan natin present sa lahat ng mga meetings on ground. Bakit po hindi natin apply yung same standard na yun sa ating mga senador? Nakalagay po sa aming House rules ay kailangan po ng circumstances bago pwedeng ma-invoke na pwedeng may video conferencing or even online voting. Kailangan ang circumstances maging extremely difficult or impossible, like occasions of natural calamities, pandemics, etc. Ang magiging pero hindi po nakalagay dito na kapag hindi nire-respondan yung warrants of arrest, for example.
As for Tino, there should not be any rush for the Senate majority to change what is written on their rules. What matters now is that Senator De La Rosa shall surrender and abide by the law following the warrant of arrest of the International Criminal Court against him.
Pero yun nga, malinaw na unreasonable yung gusto nila kasi yung House, katulad ng nabanggit kanina, ay hindi ina-allow ang virtual sessions and online voting or hybrid, wala at all na hybrid, no? Kaya nga tama ang naging pagtindig ng minority, reasonable na kailangan bago magbago ng anumang rule, kailangan nandun may quorum, tapos reasonable din na tutulan yung gusto nilang mangyari na i-allow ang online voting.
Kapatid Amy Atienza, we are One News.
Now stay tuned. Morning Matters will be back after this short break. Keep it here. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. The walkout of Senate minority members during Tuesday's session continues to make headlines after a heated exchange erupted over proposed amendments to rules that would allow online voting. Under Senate rules, at least 13 senators are required to establish a quorum and conduct official business inside the chamber. The Senate majority is now composed of 13 members. However, Senator Bato de la Rosa was not present during the session. The minority bloc has 11 senators, resulting in a narrow 13-11 split that underscores the fragile balance of power in the Senate. Joining us now to help us understand the latest developments in the Senate is Ed Montayo, President and CEO of the Political Economic Elemental Researchers and Strategists, or PEERS. Good morning, sir, and welcome back to Morning Matters.
Good morning, Pauline. Good morning to all the viewers.
All right. Well, first of all, sir, I have to ask you, how would you interpret the events in the Senate this week, and what does it say about the current dynamics in the upper chamber?
I don't know what words to use, Pauline, but it's, well, at the very least, the feeling of many people, including myself, is exasperation. No, I mean the least that we expect as far as the Senate is concerned. It's not only the walking out that is that should be a concern. In fact, the walking out is a reaction, no, to what the so-called majority has was this imposed, no, on the Senate, and I'm quite amused, no, with the was this with the what's viral in social media right now, no, when the Senator Robin Padilla has been insisting on the term force majeure. Actually, the majority as it is right now is a perfect example of force majeure. They forced themselves into the Senate leadership, no, and they're themselves complaining that the new minority has not yet accepted them, as mentioned and argued by Senator Aimee. But how can you accept the new majority when the circumstances that led to their taking over of the Senate is essentially suspect? Not to mention that the current membership of the majority are also, sorry to use the term, suspect. No, so this is the kind of Senate that we have to. I don't know whether to accept it or what, and what the future holds is something else entirely. But definitely, a Senate that is not able to follow its own rules and is even willing to throw the rules out of the window is I don't know, a Senate that is not a Senate that we do not deserve. Let me just put it that way, no, because for obvious reasons, the Senate that we remember is a Senate that is was this a characterization of order, no, and able to address important issues.
But sir, how big of a statement was that walkout from the minority bloc? And do you believe that was necessary?
Well, that's why I mentioned about the word force majeure, because the new majority has been forcing things, and so the minority sent a rather clear message, no? That well, if your idea of forcing things is this way, then we might as well not have anything to do with it, no? And this is quite this natural, no, in many parliamentary institutions, no, especially if the motion or the proceeding is no longer something that can be discussed.
Well, of course, that walkout stemmed from the heated debate over the proposal to amend the rule allowing electronic voting, remote participation. But when it comes to proposals to amend rules, the Senate's internal rules, what is the proper process that should be followed? And how crucial is quorum in the Senate, especially when it comes to contentious proceedings?
Well, the exchange between Senator Ping Lacson and Senators Alan Cayetano and Senator Marcoleta, no, explains it all, no, and it was ended with an exclamation point by the littlest senator, no, yung pinakaminamaliit nilang senator, Senator Soto, no, that ended the whole tragedy, so to speak. It's a tragedy because it's rather clear, no, as explained thoroughly by Senator Ping Lacson, how what the rules are, what's the significance of the rules, no. In other words, sinimulan niya doon, no, painstakingly explaining why there are specific steps or procedures to be taken to consideration. In other words, ang pinag-uusapan pa lang nila procedural. They have not yet gone into the substantive part, but the majority has been insisting to get straight to the substantive part when nothing has gone through the process just yet. For instance, most especially rather, that there is no committee on rules that has been formed just yet. So how can the plenary, take up, no, a matter that is of prime significance, no, without going through the usual process of going through the committee and meticulously and thoroughly processed in the committee before it is discussed in the plenary. Kaya, pinipuwersa nila eh. Tama yung term na binabraso nila yung situation. And mind you, again, it's important to always reflect and comment in the social media kasi yun ang style nila, binabaliktad nila palagi, no? And what they're citing, for example, as far as Senator Pangilinan's request before when the former senator and now Representative Leila de Lima, no, was incarcerated, the times were significantly way different, no, today compared before, because at that time it was pandemic. Not to mention that there's every reason for then Senator Leila de Lima to make that request because she followed the rules. She was not a fugitive. No, she surrendered. She faced, no, courageously, no, and patiently was this believing in the institutional processes. Ang laki naman ng kabaligtaran nito dito kay Senator Bato na pinepuwersa nila na makapag-participate pa din. And in the light of recent developments, and mind you, the cases that are expected, no, to be filed, if not already filed, as far as I don't know, 4 senators, no, are not cases of recent nature na binabaliktad na naman nila na meron daw martial law, no. In the first place, if there's really no reason, no, to be agitated, no reason to be worry of an impending arrest, because in the first place you're not guilty. How come was this railroading the process just so that the so-called majority is able to maintain its hold of the Senate?
Well, some lawmakers have described the situation as a tyranny of the majority. Would you agree with that characterization? And do you think this issue could also eventually raise questions on possible grave abuse of discretion?
There is already grave abuse of discretion, Pauline, as it is right now. And again, all the events that have happened, no, in the past 2 weeks or so already says that the particular line, no? Alam mo, simulan na lang natin, wag na muna doon sa sinasabi nilang siege. Simulan na lang natin doon sa biglang paglitaw ni Senator Bato, just so that they can muster that required number, no, to grab the leadership. Again, there's nothing wrong. It's a question of numbers. The question there is, making use of a fugitive senator, because whether we like it or not, there's an arrest warrant, no? And the fact that you are in hiding means that there is a warrant, no, regardless how much you argue that there's no arrest warrant, no? So again, and the difference between Senator Bato and the many of those who face similar circumstances is that all of them surrendered to the authorities without any brouhaha. No? They surrendered no less in the Senate premises itself. So, walang rason, no, to argue na hindi dapat ganito, hindi dapat ganyan. Plus, yung sinasabi nila na Senate siege, bukod sa wala ka namang makita doon yung kailangan mong kamustahin, my goodness. Paano mo kakamustahin yung nag-e-enjoy doon sa palabas na yon, no? And hindi excuse yung hinihintay nila yung pagdating ng articles of impeachment, because the one who receives it, if at all it requires a senator, is no less than the Senate President. It doesn't require the majority. So it's not an excuse to be there that late night. Not to mention that the office hours in both houses of Congress is only up to 7 p.m. Tapos binaliktad na naman nila na maaga daw umuwi yung mga minority senators dahil nasa bihan. No, actually, yun yung tamang oras ng uwi. So ang dapat na tanong, bakit sila naandon at that very late hour? No? So, and of course, all the investigations has already taken place. No? Which means it already shows what actually happened in the siege. Now, one last thing. Kung totoo yung siege, bakit nawala si Senator Bato? So it goes without saying that the siege was actually a way to allow Senator Bato to get back to hiding, kasi nagamit na nila eh. Nagamit na nila si Senator Bato na bumoto, nakuha na nila yung mayorya. So pwede na uling umalis si Senator Bato. And this is precisely the story that's happening now. It's a continuing saga. Kasi para magamit nila ulit yung boto ni Senator Bato at kasama na din siguro yung mga maaaring mahuli in the next few days, no? Ini-impose nila itong tawag dito, allowing them not only to participate but to vote, no, via video conferencing. Again, pag tiningnan mo yung request as far as former Senator and now Representative De Lima is concerned, there was no request for her to be allowed to vote. The request was only for her to be able to participate. It's a whole lot of difference, Pauline.
So, sir, how do you see the senators resolving this issue moving forward? Because all these events have clearly deepened the divide between the majority and the minority. Are you seeing any possible compromise between these two blocs?
I don't know whether the word there is, was this any way to resolve, or if there's any effort to resolve, Pauline, in the first place? Because clearly, no, what's happening is that they're making the most out of the situation, no? Pati yung lahat ng klase ng panggugulo ginagamit na nila, pati itong charter change. No, so kahit na maganda sana, in fact, personally, I've been taking part in charter change in any and all administration that pushed for it since the 1990s. No, and ngayon they're demonizing, no, the effort to change the system. No, just so that it can was this contribute to their numbers. No, alam naman ng tao yung style nila eh. No, so I don't know whether there is really a sincere effort to resolve this, because if what's incontrovertible is that they are really out to make sure that they remain in control of the Senate, and obviously the reason is to protect their master.
Well, in your view, sir, has the Senate ever been this polarized, historically speaking, right?
No.
And what should the public take away from what is happening right now in Congress?
I'm sure we don't even have to discuss it, Pauline. I'm sure the public has been reacting. If you go back to social media, no, which everyone seemed to be relying more and more today, primarily because with these institutions like yours, no, the mainstream media has also been demonized by the same group that's been that's been wreaking havoc in this country, no? So in other words, I'm sure the people are able now to discern better, no? Pag tiningnan mo yung social media, again, balikan natin yung kanilang tinatawag and na bailiwick, pinaniniwala nilang malakas nilang presensya, anything and everything that is posted, no, that is positive or was this endorsing and describing the Dutertes as the paragon of truth and good governance and so on and so forth, hindi na heart at saka thumbs up yung marami. Overwhelmingly, laughing emoticon na yung mas marami doon. So if that is any measure, because that's what they believe, no? The measure for them is anything but real. Sa kanila puro virtual ang measure, no? So pagka ganon, let's use their own medicine. Tingnan mo yung mga post and mas marami na yung laughing emoticon sa kanila. So to my mind, the people are seeing exactly, no, what needs to be seen.
Well, it's always a pleasure listening to all your insights, but for now, we're going to have to leave that there. Thank you very much for your time. That was Edmund Tayo, President and CEO of Pierce. Thank you, sir. Don't go away. We still have more matters to discuss right after this break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You are still watching Morning Matters here on One News. On to the weather, Pag-asa continues to monitor Tropical Storm Jangmi outside Par as it moves northwestward east of eastern Visayas. It was last spotted 1,195 kilometers east of eastern Visayas. The trough from the tropical storm is bringing scattered rains and thunderstorms over parts of Mindanao. Southwesterly wind flow is affecting Palawan, western Visayas, and Mindanao, bringing cloudy skies and rain showers. The rest of the country, including Metro Manila, will have partly cloudy skies with isolated rain showers or thunderstorms. And now here are some of the stories we're watching in sports. Alex Ayala is staying positive despite an early exit at the French Open. The Filipina tennis star lost to American Eva Jovic in the opening round, but says she is proud of her progress as she continues to compete on the Grand Slam stage. Ayala, now ranked inside the top 40, says she remains confident in her game. Meanwhile, Gilas Filipinas center Kai Soto has tied the knot with actress Rere Madrid. The couple got married in a garden ceremony in Alfonso, Cavite, with family, friends, and colleagues from showbiz and basketball in attendance. The relationship was first made public when they attended the GMA Ball in 2024. All right, and that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you just the right start to your morning. Let's make the day matter. I'm Pauline Verzosa, kapatid. We are One News, all sides, all the time.